Hello friends. There is so much contradictory information which comes out every day that I try to process, order and summarize it to get a good mental map that help us to navigate safely in the midst of inevitable uncertainty, since we are in a no man's land called Interregnum. Opinion article. Welcome to the Interregnum. The longer it is, the worse. The battle for power is very intense. Your anxiety has a name, zozobra. The remedy is to have adequate information. G20 postpones debt until June 2021. Pledges to help the most vulnerable countries. China's economy collapses due to health crisis. There is a great potential for an internet blackout. If the lights go out, it will be a good sign of victory. The president prepares an emergency constitution. Trump believes he has enough data to change the outcome. Special forces are now being deployed around the world. Putin says U.S. electoral system has problems. The route of the servers seized in Frankfurt leads to China. Intelligence sources say the president will remain in office. Let's start. The current planetary situation can be defined as a case of interregnum, where the old is dying and the new is not yet consolidated. Antonio Gramsci wrote the following: "The crisis consists precisely in the fact that the old is dying and the new cannot be born. In this interregnum, a great variety of morbid symptoms appear. An interregnum is a period of time in which state doesn't have a leader. It's a period of discontinuity or interval in a government, organization or social order. This is how the period of time between the reign of a monarch and the assumption of his successor was known. The longer the interregnum, the greater the possibility of disorder, power vacuum, or the emergency of a new internal power. The gap between reigns, when the old king has died and the new successor has not yet been decided, is called an interregnum. It can also refer to the gap between the first learning of something and the final understanding of its deeper meaning. In parliamentary systems, the term often refers to the periods between the election of a new parliament and the establishment of a new government born of that parliament. In parliamentary interregnum, the government usually remains under the label interim until the new government can be formed and take power. Similarly, in some Christian denominations, an interregnum describes the period between a vacancy and the appointment of a new pope, bishop or pastor. Zozobra. And the anxiety produced by an interregnum is called anxiety, or zozobra, Spanish word, which is a state of restlessness, affliction and distress of the spirit, in which doesn't allow itself to be calmed down, either by the risk it threatens or by the evil it already suffers. Anxiety is also a state of agitation, restlessness or anxiety. Have you ever had the feeling that you cannot understand what is happening? One moment everything seems normal. Then suddenly the picture changes to reveal a world in flames, struggling with the health crisis, recession, climate change and political turmoil. One characteristic of an interregnum where power hangs by a thread is that it's a very uncertain time. Anxiety rules the day because no one knows how things might land. This kind of uncertainty is a source of anxiety. That is why an interregnum is the cradle of people's most deeply rooted fears. So welcome to the interregnum. Take it easy, and may the odds be always in our favor. What makes the distress so difficult to deal with is that origin is intangible. It's a sickness of the soul, not caused by any personal defect, not by any of the particular events we can point to. When everything is at stake and wobbly, it would be not entirely human if it did not experience some kind of emotional distress. Those who navigate through uncertainty best are those who process information fastest. And that is precisely the service I try to provide every day as a journalist. As always, having a good mind map at the right information is very useful for that process, obviously. Debt suspension. The G20 extended the debt moratorium until June 2021. The measure is necessary because many countries cannot pay their debt in the midst of the health crisis. The Group of 20 has extended the debt service suspension initiative until June 2021, as can be seen from the Group of 20 Summit declaration published on Sunday. We are committed to implementing the debt service suspension initiative, including its extension until June, which allows eligible countries to suspend official bilateral debt service payments, the document says. The G20 adopted this in April. As of 13 November 2020, 46 countries have applied to benefit from the initiative for an estimated $5.7 billion for debt service deferral for 2020, the statement says. The G20 promises to support the most vulnerable countries. The members of the bloc have announced the implementation of an unprecedented series of fiscal, monetary and financial stability measures. The leader of the G20 member countries pledged to provide economic, financial and humanitarian support for the nations most affected by the health crisis, according to the joint declaration of the summit, which was held this weekend in digital format. We reconfirm our readiness to support all developing and least developed countries, which face a range of interlinked health, economic and social problems caused by the crisis, recognizing that they represent a particular challenge for Africa and small island states, reads the final communique. Before the G20, the UN chief warned that the developing world is on the verge of financial ruin. UN, United Nations, Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned on Friday that the developing world is on the verge of financial ruin and growing poverty, hunger, and unspeakable suffering. Unfortunately. Excuse me. Chinese economy collapses and stops. According to the China's industry experts, in February 2020, oil consumption in China will fall by 25% due to the health crisis, which has paralyzed tourism and forced many companies to close down. An epic battle. A reminder of the battle is very intense now, is that there is a great potential for an internet blackout, as the swamp desperately tries to erase the evidence of its crimes. The fight of our lives is coming. The second wave of their plan is coming, as Lin Wood said. The battle is beginning to turn in our favor. The internet could be cut off in an attempt to push the evidence. If the lights go out, know that the patriots are in control. The route of the servers that hacked the elections leads to China, according to Rafapal. According to the data stored in the computers seized in Frankfurt, 7 million votes were taken from the president. The legal team has evidence of 7 million votes removed, 10 million illegal votes cast, several million votes made by deceased persons, photos of checks providing that people were paid, and many witnesses in need of federal protection. Everyone knows now the election trap. Rasmussen's poll shows that 75% of Republicans believe the election was rigged, and now they have joined the 30% of Democrats who believe the same, all of whom presumably know simple mathematics. The president believes he had enough evidence to change the outcome. The president believes that the data he has on deception is sufficient to change the outcome of the vote in 4 states and, as a result, also in the entire country. The president is channeling the current result, alleging irregularities in the processing of ballots in key states, and has filed many lawsuits to fight his case in court. Intelligence sources assure that the president will remain in office, and I have no more information about it. The president prepares an emergency constitution. A state of war now exists that gives the president extraordinary powers under a little-known legal doctrine called the emergency constitution. One of whose most fearsome provisions is the sunset clause, which can be used to imprison anyone who poses a threat to the United States and its survival. Military deployment. Special forces are now being deployed. For those who are reluctant and acknowledge the actions that are taking place, a massive change has just been implemented in the Department of Defense that demonstrates some additional clues to what is happening. Special operation forces have now been restructured to report directly to Defense Secretary Chris Miller, who replaced Mark Esper, who was recently dismissed. USA sends B-52 bombers to the Middle East. On Tuesday, the Pentagon announced that until next January 15, 2,500 US soldiers will stay in Iraq, and the same more in Afghanistan, to deter a possible aggression. Several American B-52 bombers carried out this Saturday a sudden long-range mission in the Middle East, days after the Pentagon announced the reduction of its troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, according to the Central Command. Putin acknowledges the electoral problems. Russian President Vladimir Putin believes there are some problems in the US electoral system, but it is up to Washington to change the old pattern. We will work with anyone who has the confidence of the American people, but that confidence can only be given to a candidate whose victory has been recognized by the opposing party, or after the results are legitimated and legally confirmed. Bumpy ride. There is an information war. Buckle up, because the swamp will unleash its fury. Writer Dave Hayes says the president will most likely be re-elected, and the swamp will hand over all its assets to the people to make them pay for what they have done. The swamp will most likely reduce communications, including email, buckle up because there are curves and potholes coming. It's undeniable fact that the Republic has entered one of the most dangerous crises of its short existence. This is due not only to the disputed election result in November, but also to a multitude of other factors beyond US borders, including the financial crisis that has erupted over the world. There are various factions of orcs. The United States has for many decades been the major playground for the different factions of the swamp, in control of various monopolized industries, news agencies, and government and private institutions, forming cadres of experts in the field of science, finance and economics, specialized in social engineering, mind control, and covert reprogramming of false spirituality. Reflection. It's obvious now that the dark storm clouds are what we have been going through for the last 8 months, covering the entire earth, and that now they will begin to disappear more and more, and we will have love, freedom, prosperity, and abundance for all. No more killing or hurting anyone or anything on earth. Respect and kindness is the key. In a world of illusion, it will only release the truth. There is no doubt that much of the world in which we live is illusory, and there has been a need for independent journalism to unearth the truth about political parties, geopolitics, finance, economic science, health, and history, to name but a few disciplines. Nor is there any doubt that a growing number of people have seen a breach of trust with regard to government, businesses, and financial institutions. This has led to an explosion of beliefs and movements that now think everything is a giant conspiracy. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, friends.